everybody for joining us here today. I am so honored to join with you. So we are gathered here today. We are gathered here. Why? We're gathered here to demand justice for our environment and our communities. So I want you to join with me. Why are we here? To demand justice. Why are we here?
To demand justice.
One more time. Why are we here?
To demand justice.
Now, when do communities gather to demand justice? They gather when there is violence that is going unaddressed by our government or our law enforcement. They gather when there are victims who need to be protected. They gather when we are facing injustice. And so that is why when we experience or learn about gun violence, including against our children just trying to go to school to get educated, we gather together to do what? Demand justice. And when we experience or learn about racial violence against communities of color, against immigrant families or children, we gather together to do what? Demand justice. And when we experience or learn about violence against members of the LGBTQ community, members of our community, what do? Demand justice. And when we experience and witness and learn about and feel the degradation and devastation of our environment, we must do the same. We must gather together to do what?
Demand justice.
No. We are here to demand justice for our environment because the devastation to our environment, to our climate, has risen to the level that it genuinely is violence. Violence against the environment. We are here to demand justice for our environment because there are victims, real victims from this environmental violence. And we are gathered here because of the injustice that is happening to our environment, that is not being addressed by government or law enforcement, and worse yet, is actually being perpetuated by them. Environmental violence takes many forms, and it's prolific, and it's growing. Over half of the people in the United States of America are forced to breathe unhealthy levels of air pollution. Half of our streams and our lakes are not swimmable or fishable because of pollution and degradation. Drinking water in over 27 states is contaminated with toxic perfluorinated chemicals, contaminated by the actions not just of industry, but the actions of our government as well. Over 200 million people in the U.S. have their drinking water contaminated by the dangerous toxin chromium-6, despite the fact that the government has known about this contamination and has known about the dangers it poses for over 25 years. TCE, lead, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, heavy metals, and more infect our waterways, infect our drinking water supplies. Asthma, ADHD, autism, Alzheimer's, cancers of all kinds are major threats to our health and to our lives. And every single one of them is linked to pollution and degradation. Communities of color and low-income communities continue to be targeted as environmental sacrifice zones. They continue to have higher exposure rates to pollution and toxins. They are repeatedly forced to become host to landfills and hazardous waste sites and industrial and highly polluting industrial operations. And brown and black babies don't have to wait to be born to have a higher rate of exposure to dangerous toxins. It happens when they're forming in their mother's tummies. The harms of sea level rise and climate change are accelerating because of our nation's misplaced dedication to the continuing use of dirty fossil fuels. And it's not just the people who are suffering. Species of all kinds are being forced to face extinction because of what people are doing on the land, in the water, and in our landscapes. There is no question that the harms we are inflicting on the environment are devastating people's lives, their health, their safety, their jobs, our economy, and are devastating the lives of the species with whom we say we share this earth. Now, sadly, we can no longer assume that government is going to provide us the protection we seek, the protection that we need. I was just reading again this past week about how much money the dirty fracked gas industry has given to government officials as part of their lobbying efforts to weaken environmental protection laws. Over $60 million in just 7 years, just here in Pennsylvania alone. It's not just the fracked gas industries. Industries of all kinds, you know it, I know it, industries of all kinds have lobbyists that very literally pay for efforts to weaken environmental protection laws. And increasingly, our elected officials, they're ignoring us, acting as if the concerns of we the people are of no concern to their decision-making process. Many in industry and government and even law enforcement dismiss us. They think that we're just a nuisance to be overcome. Even worse, they call us eco-terrorists. They call us jihadists. They belittle our need, our desire, our right to defend our families and our earth from their environmental violence. Why do they get away with it? Money. They get away with it because of money, and they get away with it because that money has very literally created a system of environmental protection laws that allows them to get away with it. In fact, our laws are not written to prevent pollution and degradation. Our system of environmental laws are merely written to manage it. Manage the who, the when, the where, but not to prevent. And sometimes even management isn't required. Industry and government can get away with environmental harms of all kinds without any permits and any management. And I can tell by your faces, and I can tell by how I feel, right? This seems so bleak. It feels so bleak when we're out there battling against the pipelines and the development projects and the devastation. It hurts our hearts, it hurts our souls, it hurts our families. But you know what? It's not bleak. It's not bleak because you and I know that we have the power to change all of this. Right? We have the power. All we need to do is to organize and to act across organizations and across communities to ensure that our demands for environmental protection overwhelm those of the bad actors in government and industry. Yes. Right? And we need to be sure that the only people who get elected to office are those who will join us in our enduring effort to fight for, to protect, and restore our precious natural resources and earth. And in order to do this, we all need to embrace in our hearts, in our minds, and in our souls the truth that our right to pure water, clean air, and a healthy environment is an inalienable, inherent, indefeasible right that belongs to us by virtue of the fact that we are people here on this earth. These are rights that belong to all people and to all of nature. And here in Pennsylvania, as you have now heard, and as I will remind you, these are not just inalienable rights, but these are constitutional rights. Pennsylvania is one of only 2 states across the nation that recognizes through a Green Amendment the inalienable right to a healthy environment. To me, that means 2 things. That means we here, all of us in Pennsylvania, have a heightened opportunity to protect our environment from pollution and devastation. But more than that, we have a heightened obligation to rise up firmly and passionately to demand and defend the protection of our environment, the restoration of our environment for those of us who are here today and for the present, future generations yet to come. And my hope is that by rising up together firmly and passionately in these demands, that not only will we secure greater protections here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but we will inspire a national Green Amendment movement. We will inspire communities in every state across the nation to rise up together and to demand and to defend and to secure their own Green Amendments. And then ultimately we will be able to inspire a national Green Amendment movement that will result in a federal Green Amendment to hold our federal officials accountable. And so as part of all of this work, we gather here together today to do what? To demand justice. What does that mean? That means that we are here to demand our right to drink clean water, to breathe healthy air, to eat healthy food grown in healthy soils. We are here to demand that government focus on preventing pollution and environmental degradation, not simply permitting it and managing it. We are here to demand our right to be free from the devastating storms and droughts of human-caused climate change, which means securing a swift transition from dirty fossil fuels to clean energy. We are here to demand the right to be able to experience and enjoy the awesomeness of a healthy, mature forest. We are here to demand the right to witness the passing of a wild animal living free, happy, and unimpeded by gas wells and pipelines and housing developments and polluting industrial operations. We are here to demand the joy of clean and free-flowing rivers and streams filled with an abundance of life that inspires and enchants and supports our lives. And we demand that these environmental rights be honored and protected for all people, no matter the color of their skin, no matter their immigration status, no matter where they live, no matter what's in their bank accounts, no matter what their age, no matter whether or not they have already been born or are part of a future generation. And we are here to be very, very clear with government that we will hold government and industry accountable when they inflict harm on our environment that causes harms to our communities and infringes on our inherent, indefeasible, inalienable, and constitutional right to a healthy environment. So now let us end where we began, by together announcing our demands. So join me. For our environment, what do we demand?
Demand justice.
For our earth, what do we demand?
Demand justice.
For our climate, what do we demand?
Demand